if when you put your movement all back together and you hit the great wheel, put pressure on it, and the verge and crutch assembly is not rocking back and forth, there could be a couple things wrong. We're going to talk about this later, but I've mentioned end shake before. End shake is where you grab a hold of each wheel and you rock it back and forth from rear plate to front plate. There should be end shake. The clock, the way it was designed, each wheel is supposed to have end shake. And if it doesn't have enough end shake, that will stop your movement. If you have the bushing holes are worn out too much, especially if they're oblonged, that could prevent the clock from the verge and crutch assembly from rocking back and forth. Because these are thin plate movements, the plates can get bent, especially on the verge and crutch assembly. So if you don't have end shake on the verge and crutch assembly, you might have to bend the plate outwards to provide you end shake. When you put bushings in, because you're putting something big into a small hole, you're forcing the bushing into a small hole, that will prevent end shake. When you put bushings in, because the way you put the bushings in, you're either pressing the bushing into the hole or you're tapping it into the hole. A lot of times you have to file on the inside of the plate to allow you end shake. But in this case, the verge, the way it's designed, it has an angle on it, on the entry and exit pallets. And it's supposed to have an angle. But in this case, the angle is worn out and it's rounded off, or it's squared off. That will prevent the verge from rocking back and forth. And so we're going to have to take and put that angle back on the entry and exit pallets. So after filing the angles and the very end of the verge pallets, they have to be straight across. There can't be any curves in them, but they have to be straight across. And as you can see, it now works. So let's recap. If your clock is not working after you cleaned it and serviced it, check for end shake on each one of the gears to go back and forth from the rear plate to the front plate. They should have enough play in them to swap back and forth. It's not end shake from left to right. It's back and forth from the back plate to the front plate. After you did bushings is typically when you don't have end shake, or after you took a thin plate movement like this, and it's because you bent something. And also you want to make sure that the bushings are not oblonged or worn out. If they're oblonged, meaning they're not a perfect circle anymore, that will stop your clock from working. This is a 1-day clock or a 30-hour clock, and it should they're very lenient on bushing wear. And lastly is the verge and crutch assembly. The pallets cannot be worn out. If they're worn out, you need to take a Dremel file, whatever, and make sure you get the right angle and that they are straight across on this pallet right here and this pallet right here. Because if they have a curve in them, you're not going to get that. I hope y'all like this video, and may God bless.